the town.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it. Yes, it is like a monsoon out here. I'm driving back to Raleigh now. I came home for just a little bit of time to see my grandson who wasn't feeling well, and now I'm headed back to Raleigh for the budget.
And before we get talking about the budget, I want to say something. I actually was having a discussion with some folks yesterday, and I was saying that, we're sitting here at the so-called short session, and we just flipped the calendar to August. And it's getting harder and harder to find people. Brian Brown here locally owns his own business. The amount of time that he has to stay away from his business to serve in the legislature is just amazing. You are a sales rep, a medical sales rep, and there's not a whole lot of you in the state legislature that can really hold down, and I'm not being demeaning to others, but a real job and serve. It's supposed to be a citizen legislature, but at times like this, I mean, how are you handling it? You have a very demanding job. It's a full-time job that you hold down. Plus, you just mentioned, you want to spend quality time with your family, and being in leadership obviously takes a lot of your time too. I mean, how in the world do you handle it? And are we getting to the point that we're in danger of losing what the founders of this country and even in the state wanted, and that was a citizen legislature?
Well, it is difficult. I have a wonderful company that I've worked for almost 30 years, so they're very flexible because they do believe in civic service. And, I don't sleep a lot. But, no, it's if I didn't love what I was doing and feel like hopefully I'm making some difference, I certainly wouldn't be doing this. But family is important to me. My little grandson's here from Massachusetts. He got ill. My husband has a hard time dealing with that. And so I came home, missed my vote yesterday, got an excused absence. But you know what? Family is always first with me.
That's right. Well, you've got a good political consultant. Nobody's going to mess with you about missing a vote. Let's talk a little bit about the budget. Of course, nothing's a done deal yet, and I know that's one of the things you're going to be looking at today. But tell the folks a little bit from the House side what you're very proud of in the budget that you have put forward, maybe what some of your concerns is either in your own budget or the budget from the Senate side, and then finally, I know this is a mouthful, but what do you think the chances of whatever budget comes through getting past the governor?
Well, I was really proud of our House budget because we actually had the budget balance without doing any of the Medicaid cuts. I know it's important that we do reform Medicaid, and that's what we're going to come back in a session in November to do that. But it's tough, taking people off of once they get on Medicaid, it's awfully hard to get anybody off. We do offer more, services in any of our surrounding states. So we do need to go in and look at what's happening with Medicaid and the extra costs because the more you spend on Medicaid, the less you have for education. But I am proud of the budget that we did conference together. I think it was a good compromise. There is a trigger there for Medicaid adjustments. The one thing I was a little disappointed in was that we did make more cuts to our doctors and hospitals, another 1% reduction in their payments. But you've got to do what you've got to do to keep the budget balanced. And getting teachers a pay raise this year was important, and to state employees. Some of our highway patrolmen hadn't had a raise in years, and we needed to get them up to a level to where we could keep them. So it was a tough year, but we came out, I think, with a good budget.
Do you think this is a budget that Governor McCrory, because he's been very vocal about stating what there were specific things that he was really looking for. Do you think this is a budget that he's comfortable enough with signing?
I hope so. I think he realizes, he said he wouldn't vote for any teacher raise over 6%, but with longevity figured in to the 7% that we did go up, I think he understands that the real raise there is like 5.5%. and we needed to do it. We needed to bring the starting teacher salary up. We needed to make sure that all teachers got a raise, and we also needed to make sure our state employees got a raise, because there are a lot of hard-working state employees. I know our staff stayed with us until 4 o'clock in the morning, many weekends and nights. So.
We're talking with State Representative Pat McElrath. She's a Republican representing Carteret and Jones County. She's also in the House leadership, both as the deputy whip and one of the. How many appropriations chairs are there? You're one of 3 or 4.
There's 5. There's 5.
Five. You're one.
Side.
You're one of 5 appropriations chairs, which those of us who follow politics know that appropriations is basically means the money, and so you're very involved in this. Let me play a little devil's advocate. I had a call earlier that somebody said about, we know that some of these, the funds that are going to pay for these teacher pay raises are coming from lottery proceeds. When the lottery was initially brought in, that money was supposed to be earmarked for school construction. Once again, it happens, we called that shot a long time ago. It always gets tampered with and stuff, but what do you say to those folks that say, hey, that was supposed to be for helping building schools, and now you're using it for paying teachers, and also the uncertainty of that lottery money? I mean, are you comfortable? There was some criticism early on that there was much too much of that raise that was relying on increase in lottery revenue. Are you comfortable, number one, that the revenue from the lottery will be there to cover those raises? And number two, what are your thoughts about kind of changing the what the initial use of lottery funds was?
Well, I'm very comfortable with the lottery funds. We did not use the extra advertising, and the extra increase in the lottery. We just took what was there, and there is a lottery reserve, so we feel very comfortable with the numbers we have on the lottery. We did not use the increased advertising. So that's off the table. When you're having to balance a budget and you have such deep Medicaid issues, you have to go where the dollars are. And I think the lottery was for education. I don't think it was necessarily just for construction. I think it was, as long as we use it for education, I think that's what people wanted it to be used for. And I had a lot of people that said, why don't you do the teacher raises out of the lottery? Isn't that what the lottery is supposed to be about? So I think it is a true educational lottery, and having teacher pay come out of there is fine with me. Now, what we did in 2006 is take the Medicaid burden away from the counties. The counties had to pay a portion of Medicaid. So we took that away at the state. And I was an advocate for that because I had just been a county commissioner, and I saw that it was almost impossible for county governments to have that hanging over their head, the Medicaid issue hanging over their head, as we knew healthcare costs were going to increase. So taking it away from the county and putting it at a state level, I thought was more appropriate, because it is, I think, a state issue more than it is a county issue. But when we did that, we took away that burden from the county. So, we sometimes have to start now relying on the counties to take up the slack a little bit.
Right.
In fact, we as a state are now, with this budget, we are at the 3rd level of the nation, number 3 state in the nation for how much we as a state contribute to teacher, to student, to education in the state of North Carolina. We have moved up because of our new raises. So we're at number 3, is my understanding. Now, we were at 11 in the nation as far as how much the state funds.
Wonder how hard I'll have to look in the News and Observer to find that fact.
Oh, yeah. They'll never give us that. As a Republican legislature, they will never give us any slack in the News and Observer. So let's be realistic here.
Representative McElrath, let me finish up. I know you're on a tight schedule, as are we, but let me ask you this, and I hope I'm not putting you in a bad spot, but I think we can all admit that there were expectations going in with the Republican-controlled legislature. And I think that when the Republicans initially took over, I think the folks that leaned that way were fairly pleased with the job that you all did. But when Governor McCrory came on, and we then had a Republican governor, I think the expectations were raised even more. And I've used it a lot of times. People said, we want to become Texas. We want to get rid of the state income tax. We want to, just really some across the board changes. The last two sessions have not been exactly a cakewalk, and there has been a lot of internal, I don't want to say fighting, but it's just it's not been the smoothest of process. Do you think this has any kind of toll long term on the Republican brand and your ability to hold control of the House and Senate? That it really seems like the level of infighting may be a little bit more than one would expect when you control all three branches?
Well, of course, we'd like for it to go a lot smoother. Doug, what you have to realize is we're not a cookie-cutter party. We have people that have different views on different things. We have had the most open legislature of any time in the past. These conference meetings were open to the public. And that's never happened before in budget conferencing. It's always been behind closed doors 100%. So you didn't see the fighting with the Democrats because it was behind closed doors. We had our fighting out in public.
Right.
But I think it might be good for the party because there are so many different views. We're all conservatives, but there's a different way of getting to a conservative endpoint. But I think if you really look at what we've accomplished with tax reform and with giving these raises for the first time in 7 years, even under Democrats, the teachers didn't get the raise. So we've done, I think, the best we could. We were handed a $2.5 billion deficit when we first took over in the legislature 4 years ago, and 3 years ago. And, as a Republican legislature. And then when Governor McCrory came on, we realized, all Republicans are not exactly alike. There were some things that we disagree with him on and some things that we disagree with the Senate on the House side. But we are all trying to do the best we can for the state of North Carolina, and I think that we have done a good job of bringing the reins in on excessive spending. And, we have really gone in and looked at every department and are cutting the fat out of every department so we can spend it on the things we need to, like Medicaid and education.
Representative McElraft, thank you so much for calling in, especially on short notice. Appreciate you answering your phone and coming on with us. And best of luck. And let's hope you can wrap this thing up and get back to your real job and your family, because this has been anything but a short session. Thanks for calling in. We